Hello, my name is Amina Haq, and this is a presentation that will cover a brief overview of how schools can effectively deal with the high-risk behaviors commonly seen in adolescents. In broad terms, many schools feel obligated to provide some type of intervention program. However, many of these behaviors happen off school campuses. Because they can't control what happens outside of school hours and locations, some feel that it is unfair to expect schools to be the sole prevention method for these high-risk behaviors. Others view it as an ingrained responsibility of the schools, both because students spend a majority of their time in school and because it is a platform to provide these types of interventions to students who may not receive these opportunities elsewhere. Let's dig in a little deeper to gain a better understanding of both sides of the story. Health risk behaviors that contribute to mortality and morbidity in youth and adults are often established in adolescence and can vary greatly by geographic region, ethnicity, and gender. In other words, the behaviors that are picked up in adolescence last into adulthood and can lead to death and injury or even disability. So what do we mean exactly when we're talking about these risky behaviors? They are defined by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, or the CDC, as follows. Behaviors that contribute to unintentional injuries and violence, sexual behaviors related to unintended pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases, including HIV infection, alcohol and other drug use, tobacco use, unhealthy dietary behaviors, and inadequate physical activity. So now that we know what these risky behaviors they're talking about are, it seems clear that everybody would want some kind of intervention program to help prevent youth from acting in a way that might endanger their health, right? Well, next we'll look at some of the recommendations for the intervention programs, and then we'll get into exactly why some of those programs are viewed as unfair. And I'll give you a hint. It has something to do with the variation seen between the geographic region, ethnicity, and genders. So if you want to know more about why teens engage in the risky behavior in the first place, check out that video link and you can view a short video that talks about how the adolescent brain is actually predisposed to making those quick emotional decisions that lead to that risky behavior. In addition to disciplinary action for misbehavior, Terzian, Andrews, and Anderson give some suggestions about different types of intervention programs that seem to focus more on positive behavior reinforcement. They want to set up students for success by providing a support network. So they suggest support and strengthen family functioning, increase connections between students and their schools, make communities safe and supportive for children and youth, promote involvement in high-quality out-of-school time programs, promote the development of sustained relationships with caring adults, provide children and youth opportunities to build social and emotional competence, and provide children and youth with high-quality education during early and middle childhood. As you can see, these programs focus a lot on creating that support network to set students up for success. But do you think that this is something that should be solely the responsible of schools for enacting, or do you think that there are other players here that might be able to contribute? I'd look forward to reading your comments. Okay, so now we're going to get into why some people feel that these interventions are unfair, and a lot of it has to do with the way in which those interventions are enforced. For example, some argue that students who misbehave in schools are pushed into a life of crime, particularly if they are minorities. For example, 40% of students expelled from U.S. schools each year are Black. As further evidence, they cite that out of every 100 students who were suspended, 15 were Black, 7.9 were American Indian, 6.8 were Latino, and 4.8% were white. The West Valley School District in Spokane, Washington expelled 20% of its Black students and 60% of its white students, yet they offered no educational services during expulsion. The argument asserts that when you are punishing students by removing them from schools, you are setting them up for a life of failure and removing the only tool that they have to better their lives and improve their behavior, i.e. the tool of education. Furthermore, these students don't have the support structure necessary to act in the appropriate or expected manner, particularly when their culture is different from that of the majority. Cultural misunderstanding, they say, leads to unfair use of the discipline policy. An example of this can be found in the infographic as well, where you can see that 70% of inmates in California state prisons were former foster care youth, indicating they had a lack of a support network outside of school. The other side of the debate states that misbehavior must be punished, regardless of which culture a student comes from. These programs seek to benefit students and communities and are necessary. They state that many of these incidences occur outside of school, and the school can only really contribute when the act happens on campus during school hours or school-sponsored events. They argue that schools might work in conjunction with parents and communities to have a further effect on the students themselves. They also feel that schools are not responsible for instilling a sense of proper behavior into youth, and it is the responsibility of parents to teach their children how to act in school. They cite that teachers and administrators are already busy teaching students who want to learn and get an education, so it's unfair to those hardworking students to spend a large amount of time on a few bad apples. Furthermore, if some students are able to conduct themselves in the proper manner, why then are other students unable to learn this behavior? These are the references for the information that I've shared with you in this presentation. Some follow-up questions that you might consider answering in your comments would be, do you feel that there are any intervention programs that would be more effective than those listed in this presentation? Do you feel that there is bias when enforcing actions taken for youth misconduct? Is punishment even an effective intervention? Do you feel that education services should be provided during expulsion or after expulsion, and if so, who should provide that education? I look forward to reading your comments, and as always, thank you for listening.